Hey everyone, welcome to Unpacked and Unfiltered Tuesdays with Becky and Doris. I'm Doris.
And I'm Becky.
And yay, we're literally just two friends who talk way too much and figure out why not record it.
We talk about the real life messy challenges in business and family, sharing the mindset shifts and streamlined business systems that actually keep us sane. So basically, if you want real conversations about the messy middle of life, work, family, finding yourself when you've lost the plot, you're in the right place.
Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about overwhelm.
Yes.
How do you, Becky, help your clients with overwhelm?
I love the fact that I'm going first, Doris.
I nipped in there first.
Okay, well, obviously, overwhelm with the clients that I deal with, it's a massive thing because, and there are a number of reasons actually, especially when you look at it from two different sides of the coin.
Okay.
So you've got that overwhelm because if you're putting an offer out there, how are you getting it out there? How are you getting out? It's all right having ideas, right, okay, I'm going to run a 6 week course live. We're going to have 1 hour sessions every single week. Plus they're going to have like a workbook and things like that. How does that work practically? How do you get it out to your people? Because that the systems that sit behind it, that tech that sits behind it, needs to work so that your idea can do exactly what you want it to do.
Okay.
But if you think about the fact that you've got, for email marketing, you've got so many choices like MailerLite, MailChimp, and then you've got different course platforms. You've got MemberVault, you've got Teachable, you've got Podia, you've got all sorts. Then you've got all-in-one platforms like Kajabi, and like Go High Level and things like that. Where do you turn? Because then that's for me and for a lot of my clients, it is okay, I want to do this, but what do I use? How do I, and what parts of my offer need what kind of system?
Yeah. So, and then kind of where do you start? Do you start from a perspective of, just what you were talking about, what do I use? I've just put out the first landing page of my first workshop that friggin' hated it. Because it's not, I sat there, literally fuming and effort and blinding, because I'm with MailChimp.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, I can use that, right? I can use it. But I've had it for the best part of a year and I've never done anything with it, right? So, and so I'm here like, oh no, but I can do this, right? I can do this. I'm intelligent. I mean, it should be, and so and now with AI, I can ask it for instructions. Give me step-by-step instructions, right? But those friggin' step-by-step instructions doesn't relate to anything that I see in my MailChimp, and I'm sitting there like, I go onto MailChimp's website and it doesn't give me what it is that I want, and then there's stuff that comes in and I can't seem to delete, and I'm sitting there like, so for me it was, I worked on it for the best part of the whole day for one friggin' landing page, which when I look at it now, right, I probably could have done it in less than an hour, right? Because I've got the pictures, it's not fancy, right? But when you're talking about, your clients who are potentially, going to be using the different platform courses, online emails and all that kind of stuff for however long the business is going to be working for, is there kind of a strategy to help them with that kind of, to overcome that overwhelm? Because I know that I want to do more than just this one workshop, right? Yeah. I know this first one is going to be quick and dirty. I'm just going to get it out there, because for me, it was just getting into the action, right? I don't need this to be perfect. I just want to get it out there, right? and it is not very pretty, but it's out there, right? And so for me, that was the thing that I needed to overcome, right? But I also know that I want to do bigger things, right? But right now I'm sitting there like, I got no chip. So how would you start, getting your clients working through that kind of thing without it being overwhelming for them?
Yeah, so I'm always I always push the fact that you should keep things simple. So you're talking about the fact that you've done this landing page, you've done it, you've put this workshop out, and I bet you'll probably want to do it again, this workshop, probably in the future. And the biggest thing that you have done right now is you've got that set up. Now it's going to sound really, really unsexy, but to stop overwhelm for the next time, you need to have your processes, you need to have your assets, you need to have things accessible, you need to be organized. And that sounds so boring and it sounds so tedious. And even when I say it, it sounds boring and tedious. But if you've done it, you've got over that overwhelm of doing that. And that is the biggest hurdle that you could do. Yes, it's taken you hours to kind of go through, whereas being able to hand it off to somebody else for them to set up, yeah, you could have let that go and you could just market it.
Yeah.
But where the other side of the coin is that organization. It is that, right, you've got that landing page now, so you need a whole list of, right, pre-launch, what do I need to do before I do this again? I need to change any dates on it, I need to change any links on it, I need to change any of the copy that didn't quite work last time. You also then maybe need to update your email workflows. So you need to have time in to do those email automations. You need to make sure you set up like a Zoom, if you're using Zoom or whatever you're running your workshop in, set up a Zoom link so they actually have a current Zoom link. Then you need to have like all your emails so that it goes out to your newsletter people if you've got your newsletter running. You also need to keep hold of your assets. And by assets, I mean you've put this out into the world once through your social media, through your email, through your blog, through everything. You need to save that content so you can repurpose it and reuse it again. Because actually, if you're going into doing it again, you're going to cause yourself even more overwhelmed, because you're going to be like, I'm sure I've written this piece, but where is it? Or I don't know where this piece is, so I'm going to redo it. I'm going to retype it. But you're reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, okay.
And then you've kind of got that, right, okay, how do I approach this launch? Do I need to update any images? Like your basic things like your LinkedIn banner, the link in your LinkedIn profile, to update it so that it points to where you need people to go, tells people what you're currently doing and things like that. So there's that other side of the coin that comes with kind of having like this launch hub where you can easily go into, right, I'm launching this workshop and it's going to happen on this date, maybe in 6 weeks time. Right, let's go through the pre-launch checklist. I need to do this, done. Right, it's got to go launch on this date. Right, so for it to launch, I need to do this, and this. I need to make sure I've got my content. I'm going to schedule out where my content sits for the whole kind of week. So you have your content schedule. I'm going to review, well, what worked last time? I've got my links to the content that I used last time. Let's see what kind of works. Let's have a look at the comments and let's kind of pull out pieces that I didn't use for content last time, but people have asked me a really good question there, or I've given a really good comment on something, and I can use that as a piece of content. So that's kind of that other side of the coin. if we were doing it, if you were to come to me and say, right, okay, I need to do this, I don't know whether this is working properly, I don't know whether there's a better way of doing it. It is literally, I sit with my clients and we break down all those moving parts. So we go straight from, okay, you've got a landing page, you need a landing page, or you've got a landing page. What do people need to do from that landing page? Are they signing up for something, or do you need them to schedule a call with you? So it needs to go out into a calendar app. Okay, we've got that. What happens next then? Do they need to be pointed to a different platform? Do they need login details for a platform? Do they need links? We need to tell them what they need to do next. So what does that email sequence look like after? How can we keep them engaged? Have you got any client stories that we can use? So if it's like 6 weeks out and you've got somebody signed up, how are you keeping them engaged before that date? And then it's the, okay, well, if somebody signs up 3 days in advance and you've got a 7 email sequence, they're not going to get all those 7 emails before the event date. So what are the most important bits of those email sequence that we need to segment out into, right, if they sign up 3 days in advance, we need them to have these 3 emails. These are the most important emails before they do that. So we kind of break it. I kind of sit there and I break it down and we work through it. They give me their ideas and it is almost, it's a conversation. I'll never push specific systems or kind of specific ways of doing it. I'll give you my thoughts on it and I'll give you my opinions, especially where there's kind of, I have no idea what I'm doing. Please guide me, please help me. And it will be a case of, right, well, what have you already got in place? What systems have you already got in place? Let's work with those. Let's try and keep it simple. What do you need? What is the object? What is the goal?
Yeah, and that makes sense because, when just reflecting back on how I kind of approached it, I was kind of like, oh, look, there is this other thing that I can use, right? That seems to do everything together, but none of that is kind of linked to my website or my CRM system, right? I'm like, but it does everything, right? So it's that kind of, shiny object. Oh my God, this is a shiny object. Can I, and I followed that for a little bit, right? Before it's like, well, actually, you keep it simple because then, there isn't that extra step, right? Potentially of having to download something from this website to then upload it into your website or whatever else, right? So what you're saying, just, like you say, the processes and assets, it isn't sexy, but actually what's coming to me as you're talking about it is like, yes, the first time or maybe even a second time can be messy, but if I can systemize it, right? So that the next time I don't have to reinvent the cycle, right? Because, and inevitably, it's kind of like, if this is what you want to continue doing, if it's a one-off and you're never going to do it again, then that's fine, right? But if I intend to do more workshop or webinars or something like that, it's kind of like, it makes it easy, right? I then have to spend less brain power doing this project version number 3, right? When I've got a checklist already, right? To say, hey, actually, this is what I have to, and this is the folder on my laptop that has all this information in it with a backup to the cloud if my laptop was stolen or whatever else, is to know that, because if you don't, the worst thing that I know that can happen is if you don't do that, something will happen or may happen, and then you're literally back at square one, right? And I remember, when I was at university back in the day, I was doing architecture, and I was doing a couple of all-nighters doing my design, and I hadn't taken copies and actually left my drawings with the A0 size all rolled up, my drawing tube. I left it on at the bus stop.
Oh no.
I totally forgot. So tired. Came home and I was like, okay, I've got to do some more work. And I was like, where's my freaking tube? And I was like, no! I rushed back. I forgot my brother to drive me up to the bus stop, but it's already gone, right? It's gone.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there I was, literally, 2 days worth of work all gone, right? And now I have to hand it in tomorrow, right? So I'm doing an all-nighter, but I can't reproduce in, one night the things that I've produced in 2 days, right? So it's then going to be, I still have to hand it in because that's the deadline. So I'm thinking, if I've got a deadline in terms of the workshop, right, I'm not going to shift it because people have already signed up and are going to come to us or whatever. So I'm at my least optimum then, right? I will still definitely then winging it, right? Which doesn't make me feel good because, and actually that doesn't, the overwhelm is just way over, right? And people will be like, is she on something? She's all over the shop, right?
Yeah.
That's then what, what then I then translate to other people, right, who are on the course as well, right, which or on the call, and that doesn't fill them with a whole load of confidence, right? Because I'm not confident because I'm frazzled, right? So yeah, to make sense. It's that kind of, what comes to me is that if you do it as you go along, it is less of a chore.
Yes.
Potentially, right? Or immediately after, right? So what's the steps that I did, in a quick note or whatever else, and then just find some time to go through that. I guess that's just where, you can help your clients do a lot of that already, right? It's like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've got it, and we can customize it because it's either 10 steps or it's going to be 30 steps. It's not going to be any more. It's not going to be less than 10, right? So you got to choose, right? Depending on the system that you use or the platform that you use or whatever else, right? Makes it so much easier, right? And this is where I guess asking for help isn't a bad thing.
No. Then this is it. You can have those conversations, just speak to somebody. There's so many people within my community like me where we will we can be a sounding board. We are literally that sounding board. You tell us your ideas, we'll help guide you. Right, okay, well, actually, you need something to be able to do this, so you could use this or this. And then you're going to need this because you need to share this, so you can do it this way or this way. And especially if you're using this system already, you could do this. And it's really kind of like, there's just, and I always go, there's just so many moving parts that having that sounding board, even just that sounding board, can take that stress away.
Yeah.
And I think as well, if you sit there and you're thinking about this often, and you think, oh my god, I've got to do this, and how do I do this? How do I set this? I need to do this live, and how do I get it to go through LinkedIn live, and then how do I get certain people to know what to do with this? And I want to share this workbook, or I want to share certain links, but I need to have those links set up already. There's just so many. It's just like this. But I always say that you can break it down really into 3 fundamental things that you kind of need. 2, if you're doing a freebie, it is you need a landing page and you need your email sequence. Or you need your landing page, you need your email sequence, and you need a payment processor. Have those and you can get an offer out.
Yeah.
And if you could break it down into those 3 things, it then becomes a little bit more simple.
Yes. Yeah. No, and it's really funny when, because when you haven't got anyone like you to kind of help frame it, right? Just kind of put a nice little box around it, right? Because when I was thinking about, this is what I'm going to do. One, I was very naive because it's going to be easy, and then you're like, oh yeah, but how are people going to know about this? Because I can't shout using my voice, right? Because not many people around me in my office, right? No, so I've got to do the whole marketing piece, and I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be, but how are they going to sign up? Me like, okay, can they not just DM me, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll send them the link, and I'm like, well, that's not the most efficient way. In my network, yes, I've got some people, but not all of them might want to come, and I don't know who I don't know, right? So then it mushrooms. It becomes this bigger and bigger and bigger, and then this is where I think that you just need people in your corner who can guide you and just keep it simple, right? Because there's once I got to the tipping point, it's like, I thought I could do it, 3 different in my own head, right? Having never done it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then actually, number 1 doesn't work, number 2 doesn't work, number 3 doesn't work. It's kind of full blown panic, right?
Yeah.
I've now set myself this goal, right? And I don't want to go back on my word, right? Because, you know, I'm here, you know, I've made a commitment. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and do it, right? And then it's kind of, and then that is when the whole was like, I sit there, I was like, I'm never going to do it. I just need to find myself a little hole to crawl into, right? And then maybe just pretend it's not going to happen, or wait for someone else to just come in and come in like, you know, a knight on a white horse and shining armor and come in and just rescue me, right? It's not going to happen, right? You know, but then kind of like that comes, you know, and then when you have someone who says, hey, look, it's really simple. Just do this. Just do, like you said, just do those 2 things, and that's it. You don't need your whole, you know, like I say, you know, it's 7 email sequence. Just do your first one, right? And you're like, okay, because I didn't even know, right? You know, on the last one, right? Never mind the first one. It's like, look, Jimmy, you forgot that. As long as you know, when we get to, they can sign up, give you an email address, and you just say, hey, you're in, or you send them an email with just the date, or that's an add event to your account. That's it. Done. Yep. And then give yourself some peace, right? Because your event is 3-4 weeks out, right? You don't have to do everything today, right? That is, you can phase it, and you're like, okay.
It's always about taking action over perfection in my head. As long as you do something, nothing is ever set in stone. So you can tweak and you can redo things all of the time. I was talking to somebody at a conference the other week as well. And it was really interesting. So we were talking about how she had created an offer for people over the 6 weeks holiday for them to do. And it was a paid offer, and she was like, oh yeah, I only got 10 people sign up, and it took me days to work out how to do all this stuff. And it struck me, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going to pose this question to you. If you'd have had somebody who could have set this up for you, do you think you would have been able to spend more time on the marketing and bringing the clients in instead of how you've just done it? And she was like, absolutely. Having that person and being able to take your eye off that, so that you can actually go out and talk to your people and kind of market it and focus on that marketing. It's a massive kind of difference, because if you can't have enough time devoted to that marketing, you're not going to get as much out of the offer as you really want, and you know its potential as well. And that's another overwhelming thing. It is those, I need to set up the tech, but I also need to market. But like, I've got to spend time doing that, and I've also got to spend time doing that. But if I don't do that, I can't do that.
And I think, you know, so how do you help your clients who sometimes with that dichotomy, right? It's the same for my side of the business, right? You're asking people to spend, you know, sometimes potentially a significant amount of money, right? You know, to invest, right? And I like to use the term invest rather than cost, right? Because you know, investing means it's growth, right? Costing is just, you know, an overhead. You know, electricity is a cost, right? You know, but you know, when you're doing something for your business, you're investing because ultimately you're going to get an ROI on it, right? You're not going to get a return investment, because this one thing will potentially be a launch pad for something else, or be able to grow over time or whatever, and you're going to get the money back. So how do you help your clients through that mental block, right? When they're sitting like, yeah, but don't get any money coming in. So how can I pay you? And then I don't have anything coming in yet.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. That one is actually. I don't think there is a real right answer for me.
No.
I think I've always tried to position where it can be that there's different levels of support that I can offer. And I'm honestly, I will never ever say to somebody, right, okay, this is what it's going to cost you, and if you can't afford it, then no, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah.
I'll always be more forthcoming with, right, okay, well, let's sit. What have you got? And it will come back to those things, right? Okay, what have you already got that you already know how to use? Have you got like Google, right? Have you got Google Workspace? Have you got a website? If you've got a website, right, okay, let's set up a landing page. Let's just set up another page and link it to something. Like, okay, if you've got MailerLite, just stick with MailerLite. Like, let's set up a landing page through there, and then you're literally asking people to send an email and whatnot, and then we'll set up the email workflow, and I'll kind of give you those like the main breakdowns of things. And I have like always have a free kind of pre-launch checklist as well that people can utilize, so that they can ask themselves those questions and things like that. But that's a really difficult question, Doris.
Yeah, I know.
I
know it's a really difficult question, because I've been toying with this question myself, and actually I'm kind of sometimes now changing the other way, right? Especially, when we're both in the service industry, right? And all we really want to do is to help other people, right? And ultimately what we're trying to do is help people get to wherever it is that they want, right? From A to B in a much shorter period of time, in a much more in a way that feels not overwhelming, right? In a way that fits them and their lifestyle, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? They'll have to put in the hours and they'll have to put in the work, right? But it's all about, instead of you figuring out, like you said, the lady you're talking about, doing something over the summer for 6 weeks or whatever, she might have spent, two weeks, right? Creating something, right? Landing page and whatever else, right? You could have done that in an hour, probably, right? She would have had, instead of, doing 2 weeks, and, if she was working, average, say, 7-hour day, that is a lot of time. Like you say, she could have been going out, going to networking events, telling other people, or, other parenting groups or whatever else, right? So she only had 10 people sign up, right? But if she's had those extra, say 9 days, right, to go out marketing, how many more clients would she think that she could have gotten on this program, for a 6-week program? If that was 20, that's the missed opportunity is 10, right? Those 10 other people that would have gone the course, and they paid, I don't know, let's make a number up, 50 quid, right? Or let's do 100 quid, it makes it easier. 100 quid for those 6 weeks, right? That would have been £1,000, right? That she'd missed, right? And that £1,000, it's kind of like, but you wouldn't have charged her £1,000 for an hour's worth of work, right? So it's kind of like, yes, you might not have the money in your pocket yet, but you're set to lose. Ultimately, the opportunity is £1,000, right?
And that is it, really, isn't it?
That's it. And this is the kind of opportunity. And you'll have clients who, will sell big packages, right? And there's not £1,000, and it's kind of like, £1,000 per person. So you've got 10 people missing out. That's £10,000. That's a hell of a lot of money, right? And to help. So this is where I'm in my head, it's kind of like, potentially that's another way to look at it. Not the actual money that you've got in your pocket, but this is what you're losing. Right? And over a period of time, and if this is a continual 6-week program, right, you're going to have 52, you're going to have potentially 7 or 8 of those a year, right? And £1,000 pop, right? So that's 10 grand times about 8, and that's part of 100k that you're literally dropping into the toilet, flushing away, right? And if that doesn't make you feel sick, right? It's kind of like, oh my god. So this is where you kind of it's, and I think for us it's that kind of what I like to call a love shove, right? To really help people, because especially when that you want to help them, right? It's to get them into a position to say, hey, actually, because you're helping them see things in a different way, right? This is not your zone of genius. That's why it's okay to ask for help. It's not that you're less capable or less worthy as a human being or a parent or a business owner or whatever, because you're not doing it. We're always better when we work together, right? And yes, nothing in this world is for free, right? But with me supporting you, and you could make potentially an extra 100k this year, that's going to come round, right? Because I've helped you. You might be able to refer some more clients to me. And it all just keeps going round, and all of us keep uplifting, right? So that, because, money makes the world go round, but the more money that we kind of circulate within us, right, with our community, our own ecosystem, right, the less, and we can build ourselves up from that, the less worry we have about money and paying the bills and, oh my God, are we going to be able to go on holiday this year, right? When we get rid of all of that, we can sit even more solidly in our zone of genius and help even more people, because there's nothing in my brain that says, oh my God, yeah,
exactly.
Next, the kids want to go on a skiing holiday and it costs £2,000, and it'd be really good to go, right, for them, and because we're really good experience, but I don't know how to do that. And then there's a whole guilt, right? Because I want to give my kids more, but I don't know how we're going to afford that, right? And that keeps niggling in your back head. And it's just a little bit. This is just one thing. How many other of those things do we have? And that potentially can take 20, 30, 40, 50% of your actual energy that you can put in the present and create something and help others, right? Uplift them. Where we actually, really just operating at 50% of our real productivity or efficiency or whatever else, right? And that all ties into how we show up in all our relationships, right? And for my side of the coin is kind of, this is how I try and help people, reduce the overwhelm. So kind of, what's really important to you, right? It's truly important to you. You spent 2 weeks, right, working on this freaking landing page when you would have been better off at the beach with the kids and all this kind of stuff, right? You've lost that opportunity now, because you're never going to get that time back.
That's
right?
it.
And it's to help them to kind of go, what's really important to you, right? And because there's always ways, right, of doing something, right? And like you said, it's kind of like, okay, maybe you can't afford my services for, on a monthly retainer, okay? But I have got some resources that are currently free, or, I can give you an hour, right, to kickstart you on something, right, that will at least save you 3 days, right? Or I can get this done for you, right? And that's going to be littler amount of money, right? And it's not going to be a retainer, right? But then is that when you do get those extra clients, you kind of sit down and say, oh, actually, it is so much easier. It's that having that real freedom to really, and you always have a choice, right? It's never truly black and white, ever.
No.
There's always different shades, isn't it? And there's always different, and it's all those kind of, those monkeys in the back of your head. They're not keep chattering away about, oh, but you shouldn't do that. Oh my God, it's whatever amount of money, or oh my God, you haven't got anything, you haven't signed anyone else. How can you? And what if? And what? You're like, well, trust in yourself. If this bit isn't your true jam, right, and you don't really enjoy it, find someone else to do it, right? And yes, it's okay, if you want to do it from your own learning experience and all this kind of stuff, and it's simple, right? My head's kind of, it should be simple for everyone to set up a landing page using, MailerLite or MailChimp, right? It isn't actually all that difficult, right? And it's a useful skill to have, right? Especially when you do want to do something quick, right? But anything more big than that, I'm sitting like, well, how do I put links in and all those and all that? If it's your interest and you want to learn, that's great. Because for me, kind of that part of learning is like, hey, actually, I've got this now, right? And in the future, when I potentially need to find someone, or I want to find someone who can help this, at least I have a sequence or a process, a system that I at least understand. So if for whatever reason I can't get help because they're away on holiday or something happened to them, right, and I need to step in, I've got some sort of idea of what I'm doing, instead of having to teach or get someone in the last minute to help me with something. So for me, it's that kind of my own personal education. So it's kind of really quantifying, what is it that you're trying to get out of here, right? Is it really just if you're learning, great, right? But if you're not learning from it, right, and you're not making money from it, it's kind of like, well, get someone else to go and do it, right? Because I can spend more time, like I say, either at the marketing or going to networking events or whatever else, right, to create more of a buzz and give myself better opportunities for people to come and and take advantage of the service that I'm doing. So for me, it was that kind of workshop, right? And the whole Overwhelm, is that kind of like, what's urgent versus kind of important, right? You know, and this is where, you know, you're talking about, you know, which thing is it that, because most of the things that I find that people say, oh, this is really, really urgent. Actually, if we didn't do it, it's not a life or death situation, right? The boss might just be a bit miffed, right? That I didn't hand it in by, you know, 2 o'clock, but actually 4 o'clock is also going to be okay, right? Because he's going to be in, or she's going to be in meetings anyway until 5 o'clock. So as long as he or she gets it before the end of the day, it's going to be okay, right? Versus what's truly important, that actually makes and moves the dial, right? That actually creates that momentum for tomorrow, makes tomorrow a bit easier, or it makes that project get a bit better. And it's just having those kind of thoughts, because we have so much going on, like we said, you know, no matter which aspect of our life, whether it's just, you know, you can't segregate it all, right? You can't segregate, oh, this bit and this time only, right? From 3:30 until 8 o'clock at night, that's just kiddie time, right?
Yep.
And I will focus on nothing else but kids. If you could, like that would be amazing, right? But horrible clients, or sometimes we've had difficult conversations that we've had during the day, right? That carries in, right? And you're sitting there like, and then before you know it, you know, little one will drop something, and you're like, normally you would just, no, I'm probably messing. And then you're sitting there shouting at the child, and it's like, well, I've just dropped something, you know, why is this suddenly a massive thing? And then immediately we go into that, oh my God, you know, I'm such a horrible parent, right? I just shouted at my child when he or she just did something really silly. It's nothing. It was, in the grand scheme of things, it is nothing, right? But we can't switch ourselves off like that. We can't just say, oh, well, and right now I am just couple Doris, right? You know, totally focus on husband or whatever else. Or now I am mummy Doris.
Yeah.
It just links in, right? Because we're just only one person and one brain, right? And it's kind of like, you know, and this is where the whole, you know, what's urgent and what's really important, right, comes in. It's kind of like, hey, what is truly important now? Right now, it is to have a cuddle with my child, or having this difficult conversation with my children about them, the use of, you know, social media or iPad or whatever else, right? And it's, for me, it's got kind of recognizing the signs.
Yeah.
Signs when you're about to erupt. And that comes from that awareness when you are typically, you know, and we're always a bit more triggered when we are low on energy, right? We've had a hard day. And for me, it's kind of like, and instead of, you know, like we just talked about this at the top of the hour, it's like, oh yeah, I'm super mom, you know, I'm superhero. Of course I can do it, right? And it's, of course you can, everyone can, right? But is that actually just sometimes verbalizing it, just accepting it? Like, you know, it's like, and so it's as simple as, you know, just taking a minute and say, I am so annoyed.
Yeah.
With whatever happened, you know, 10 hours ago or whatever, right? And just name it. You don't have to change anything. You just name it, right? Because overwhelm typically is because there's just too much going on, and it's not really clear. There's like 20,000 thoughts all going on one time, and you can't pin it all down, right? And those feelings, just letting go and naming it. So I'm just really annoyed. And you're not annoyed at, you know, you typically are annoyed at a situation, right? Or you may be annoyed at how I behaved,
yeah,
right? Or upset about how I behaved by snapping at my child. So, oh gosh, right, I shouldn't have done that, right? Sometimes by just hearing yourself saying that, just kind of calms everything. It just is. I can't take it back. I can't wind the clock back, right?
Yeah.
20 seconds or 5 hours or whatever, right? I just said it, right? And then you kind of sit there, okay, how do I then want to deal with this current situation that's at hand? I forget the emails and all this kind of stuff. I want to deal with this one first, right? What's important now is that my child is not crying. Like you, right? The little one, you know, this far, right, from the school gates, right? So I'm like, no,
yeah.
okay, I got to deal with this right now, right? You know, right, he's okay. Now let's go, right? And like I say, it's that at some point there's got to be a boundary, right, where you say no more, right? You're now crossed over into the school playground, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because, and that's okay. It's, you know, because we can't overtake responsibility. And this is where I find with the clients that I work, it's like, oh no, but I've got to do everything for my children, right? And if I don't do this, I'm like, who says that you're going to be a bad parent if you don't do that? Who says it? No one says it. No one's going to say, oh, Becky, you're such a horrible child that you didn't actually carry your child into the classroom and took him to the nurse's station to, to get his knees looked at or whatever else, right? No one is saying that. If anyone was saying that, the brain monkeys in your head, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be splitting the kind of what's fact and what am I assuming, what's assumptions or judgments I'm making here in the moment, because, we are so harsh on ourselves, right? And it's kind of like just breathe a bit. Just breathe. Okay, I'm breathing. Number one child is breathing. Number two child is breathing.
Oh, okay.
I success, tick box. You know what I mean? This is what I do mentally in my head. By 8:10 when they're both out of the house, tick tick, done.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't impact anything else more because I can't go to the classes with them. I can't do the PE with them. I can't sit the tests with them, and all this kind of stuff, right? They gotta do it themselves, right? Because because there's this thing about lawnmower parenting or helicopter parenting, any type of parenting. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. However you want to parent is right for you, right? Not for, anyone else to judge. Our parents are the worst at that, right? Oh, well, why are you doing this? Right? But you kind of like, no, this is how I want to parent my children. And yes, I'm never going to get it right, right? Just accept that as a fact because you're never going to get it right, right? And just say, and as long as you do it with the best intentions, because we all want our best, we all have our best intentions for our children at heart, right? We don't want them to be hurt, but it's kind of like inevitable that they're going to get hurt, right? So especially for us, when we kids at school age, it's kind of like, this is the safest time for them to fail, right? Let them fail, let them bounce back. You don't have to do everything for everyone. And the same at work as well, right? Same at work and, you're leading teams or whatever else. It's kind of like, allow people to, don't swoop in and be the savior all the time, because that's not really your job, because you're actually, taking growth and taking development away from the people that you're working with. If you're always coming in and swooping in, right, like a superhero, how are they ever going to learn? Because they end up relying on you, right?
Yeah.
And what we are in control of is if your team members do fail, how are you going to react to it, right? If you set up a system where it's okay to fail, right? As long as, we don't lose mega millions, right? And, we haven't sent the wrong products out, with the wrong thing to whatever else, right? And no one's going to die from it, right? If it's a little bit of money, take us an expensive lesson, right? And move on, because we only learn when we make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So any last words about Overwhelm in terms of systems to add, Becky?
I don't think I have anything from that, but from from the kind of point of view from you, I think there's that whole thing of how much do you think that the pressures of society and what we see and everything add to those shoulds that sit in the back of our head, which then cause that overwhelm. Because we want to be a high achiever, but we also want to parent our child as best we can. But it's all that should that kind of sits there and adds to that kind of overwhelm. What are your kind of thoughts on that one?
Okay, so we as humans are are typically run as a physical body, run by our subconscious mind. So that means that the subconscious are all the conditioning that you talked about, right? It's kind of like, when your parents tell you, oh yeah, but girls, should always have long hair and should always be tied up, or things like this. Or, with regards to work, you should always work hard, right? If you want more money, you have to work very hard. And, for me, it's kind of, and you shall never question authority, right? People who are older than you or further ahead than you, right? So you keep still and you keep saying yes, right? This is all we want to see. Yes, yes, yes. And how much, right? Literally. And that conditioning is kind of set from a very young age, right? So I call that an operating system, right? You're working on operating system 1.0, right? You come out your womb initially as a baby, right? You are just literally pure joy, right? There's only two fears in your life. But as a baby, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's it. Any other fears we've learned, right? And we've kind of absorbed it and embodied it. And then we kind of live as if that's our truth, right? So a lot of our lives, we're actually over, 80%, we're driven by our subconscious, right? But these are all just kind of habits that we've kind of internalized, as I said, right? And believe this is how we should live our life, right? Based on stories and what our friends did and at school and, in corporate and however everyone else did, right? And what I find is when people start becoming overwhelmed, that's kind of a signal there's something not quite right, right? We're always triggered because we're always stressed and there's always so much stuff to do, right? It is. And when you don't take the time to look at the stories, right, that we have in our subconscious mind, and but this is a lifelong process, right? There's always going to be layers. When you start taking time to really explore what's really triggering you with this particular situation, was it their tone, was it my tone, why did I feel like this, right? And really start exploring, so kind of be a detective in your own life, that you can start spotting the patterns that cause you to behave in a certain way. And then you can probably trace them back to probably what your great grandmother said, to your grandmother, and then grandmother to mom and whatever else, right? You're like, and then it's that kind of really quite uncomfortable say, oh my God, but this defines me. This is how I've lived my whole entire life, believing this story, right? So for me, it's that you've got to work really, really hard, right, to make more money, right? And always say, always, be the dependable one and always say yes, right? And once I started peeling all that back, I'm like, is that really true? And I kind of having to split it, like, as in, is it kind of legally, black and white? If I went to court, right, and sat in front of a judge, right, would he say or she say that this is no, this is what you have to do? You have to be always say yes. They're never going to say that, right? It's kind of being that strict with yourself. Is this really a truth, as in capital T, irrefutable in a court of law, or is this a small t truth that I've just absorbed?
Yeah.
Right? And once you're aware of that, you can then start questioning, hey, do I really want to live by this rule that says I always have to say yes? No, I freaking don't. It's what got me so exhausted in the first place. And then you can, like I said, there's always choice, right? So how do I want to deal with it? Maybe I start small, right? Maybe I start saying no to my kids for stuff that I've kind of always allowed them to do, but I'm saying no more, right? Start small, or just say, then, and just make it a game even, right? The next time someone at this level or your peers ask you for, to help them with a piece of work, you just say, no, I'm full up. Let's see what happens. Just try it. It'll be uncomfortable because it's not something that you've been doing for the last X number of decades, right? But when you start that and you want it, but you only got to want it, right? No one is going to make you do anything, right? But you've got to want to change. And when you do that, you can start reprogramming some of this subconscious stuff that's going on. But yeah, it's very prevalent and it's very strong. And lots of people, unless they start looking for it, are not aware of it.
Okay. I think it's really funny as well that, and I mean, for both sides, for both of us, is that overwhelm can look different to so many people. Like, from your side of things, I bet you're meeting people at very different points and at very different levels, but that overwhelm for them is just, it's reached that point, and then they need your help. They need to relearn things, and they need to give themselves the space. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And it's kind of like, we're not made in a cookie cutter approach, right? We're all different humans, right? And it's okay for us to, feel different, right? Just because someone gets overwhelmed, when they've got 3 things on their plate, other people might not even get to that phase unless they've got 20 different things that need, and then other people are like, oh yeah, but once I've got 20 things, that's when I will start working, right? Because I like the kind of pressure and whatever else. And everyone's different. And that is okay, right? And it's all coming from that space of, hey, I'm not here to judge you, right? I'm not here to judge you. All I want to do is help you, right? From my side, as a coach, I'm like, all I want to do is help you. If whatever you're doing Do you feel it's working for you? Keep at it, right? I'm not here to say that you're freaking crazy. It's kind of someone saying, oh yeah, I'm going to make it my goal to run 200K. In my head, I'm like, yeah, my dead body. Why would I ever want to do that, right? But if that's your goal,
yeah,
I can help you achieve that goal, right? Because it's meaningful to you. Running 200K, why would I ever want to do that, right? I mean, to me, it's kind of like, no, right? But if that's what's really meaningful to you, because it makes you feel great, because this is something that you've always wanted, great. All I'm here is to support you. Right? I'm not here to tell you this is your goal, right? And it's similar to you, right? It's like, what is it that you want to do with this?
Yeah.
There are many different flavors, right?
Exactly.
We all just do vanilla, right? All I give you is vanilla, right? That's all you're going to get. That's vanilla. Because today might be vanilla, tomorrow I might want stracciatella. I don't know, right? It just depends on the mood, right? And that's okay. And it's kind of like coming from a space like, just because someone is different, just because they behave differently or do things differently, doesn't mean that they're better or worse or whatever than you. They're just different, right? And if you can just look at them from their space, right, and come at it more empathetically and say, okay, but question it, is this truly what it is that you want? Or are you doing this? Or are you choosing this because Jane has done it, Dave has done it, John has done it, or whatever else, because you want to fit in with the Joneses, or because your mom says that this is what you should be, right? Then if it's truly what it is that you want, and it fills you with a whole host of happy feelings, let's go after it.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it because I think I should, let's revisit that, right? Let's keep revisiting that about whether this is truly what you want. Because if you keep on going after the shoots, you're never going to be happy. You're just never going to be happy. You're never going to have the freedom that, most people work so hard for, right? Spending the 60, 100 hours or whatever. Right? It's kind of getting to that space where if you really enjoy what it is that you're doing, you're never going to work a day in your life.
That's
right?
it.
And this is kind of where I move myself to. I love what it is that I do, right? And doing the coaching is like, for me, it's kind of like icing and cherries and sprinkles on top of a cake, right? Doing the whole systems bit, the whole setting up the IT bit and techie bit. And I'm sitting there like,
what?
I let myself strap in and still put a smile on my face, pretend to myself that I'm enjoying this. Okay, I'm learning, right? So that's the thing, right? I'm learning, and as long as you're learning and something like that. But if you're going through something by gritting your teeth and and effing and blinding and whatever else, and you're not really getting anything out of it, offload it. That's where I'm.
Absolutely. I sat on this morning and I was like, actually, there's no right or wrong way to do something. There's only your way.
Yes.
And what fits to you. That's it. All that matters.
Yeah. And that's really great, because actually, when you're in corporate life, right, you always have to do it their way.
Yes.
Right. The possibility of creativity is much less. You can still have it, right? It is just about reframing how things will work towards you. And just because they've always said that this is the way that you've got to do it, there's always ways to circumvent it and make it more fun and make it resonate with you and your process a lot better too, right? Just because it's rigid doesn't mean there is no flexibility, right? It's about looking at it from a different perspective, right? And maybe as a person who's delivering a project, it's kind of really understanding what this project is supposed to deliver. Right? Because most companies will just say, yeah, okay, as long as you follow these kind of processes because of legal or you've got all the certificates in place or whatever it is that's required, we're going to be okay. Everyone is allowed to do their own way, but we put it in this way. Oh, no. 10 times, the last 9 times they've done it this way. So
do it this way again,
yeah, exactly right. But it's kind of like, why don't you bring your own uniqueness to every situation that it's more you rather than the clone?
Yeah.
Right? Because once, I've experienced it, you've experienced it, right? Like once we become a clone, we just sit there. There's no joy. There is so much. Life is just so much duller and less colorful and so much less fun, right? And through what I do, and I guess, it's hearing from you. So let's make it fun, right? It doesn't need to be any which way.
Yeah.
Just make it fun and kind of simplify it as much as possible, right?
And I think as well, you've hit on a really big thing as well, in the fact that it's being able to question and reprogramming yourself to be able to question certain things, whether it's your beliefs, whether it's, well, how do I do this? It is having that choice and being able to give yourself that space to step back and go, right, okay, but
yes. And this is where it comes to, you know, having kids is great, because kids always ask why. Always. Why are we doing this? And somehow, at some point, I don't know which age it is, right? Or what situation, we stop asking the really why questions from a curiosity perspective. Not why, you know, not angry, but from a curious. But why are we doing this? It's kind of like having those conversations. Well, Daddy, why do we, you know, some of the conversations that we have our kids go right on my head. Why does the earth circulate this, or why does the sun do that? And they're like, no idea. I just accepted it. But actually, it's really quite interesting, right? Coming from that perspective of curiosity, right? Wanting to actually learn more about how things work, right? Instead of accepting that this is gospel, right? And this is how we should do things, right? You know, because once you understand it a lot better, and then you can equate it to things that you find important and that I find fun, all the chores, might think, oh, actually, it's not so bad. Or it's not as much of a chore, or actually, this is a lot of fun, right? Instead of accepting what everyone else has said, right? And, you know, the questioning bit, it's great, because we just lose sometimes that ability, because we think that if you question it, we look stupid.
Yeah.
But
because, then go on.
No, you go on.
I was going to say, because then as well, and something that just hit me is that being able to question as well and having that curiosity, do you think it gives us and opens up that ability to get to know ourselves a little bit more? Because we've sat in a mold maybe for so long, and it's brought us to a point maybe of overwhelm, and then actually we need to step back and we need to question, like you said, what's important to us, what is important to us right now, and then we get to know ourselves again and how we tick and how we work, and we can kind of bring ourselves back down again.
Yeah, totally. Because I think, you know, we take on so much as, you know, as a given, right? This is just who life is, right? I think until we start questioning it, and actually not a question for others, like you say, you know, it's a question for yourself, right? And does this really feel right to me, right? And really be curious, right? And not judge our own answers, right? And, you know, whatever the answer is, if it's yes, it's yes, right? We don't have to, you know, really quantify everything in our life, right? It's kind of actually, you know, just be curious, right? And, you know, and this is where our feelings are just kind of flags, right? Oh, something's not quite, you know, especially when it's related to stress or anger and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just a flag that something is not quite right. Something deep inside you is just saying, right? But what we've learned to do is just kind of run through it, right? Just push through it. Just push all the way through it. Whereas if we just sit there, it's like, okay, what's going on here? And it doesn't mean that, you know, you've got to take, you know, 6 weeks off and go off to the Himalayas and sit in some, you know, Buddhist temple. You know, that'd be great. I mean, I'd sign up, right? You know, no kids for 6 weeks. Yeah, I'm all for it, right? It doesn't require that. It just requires that little bit of self-reflection, right? And it might just be, you know, a couple of breaths or a minute, you know, to go out and for a walk or something. Hey, you know, and just sit with that, right? And then even if the answer doesn't come to you, right, don't beat yourself up for it. You're starting a process, right? Nothing, you know, we never get from A to B in just one big step, right? It's all these little things, right? And the more you start questioning about yourself, you know, it's that rewiring with the brain. Oh, okay, this is something that we're going to do, is it? Yeah, we'll always try and pull you back to your safe space, right? But it's kind of like, okay, let me question this. And if it's not true, what could be true for me, right? What could be another way of looking at this, right? And the more that we do that, instead of, you know, putting the blinkers on, right? The more that we take the blinkers away, the more that we'll see, right? And then actually there's less judgment that comes from that, right? Because the more that you question it, you get to understand yourself a lot more, right? Which means then that you get to, hey, okay, this is what I truly want, right, in life, right? Not what I think I should want, right, to get to the next step or whatever else, right? And once you come from that kind of space, actually, it's not about working harder or saying yes all the time, right? What actually happens is working the smarter, right? Doing actually less, but still getting more in terms of, whatever it is that you want out of life, more money, more whatever, right? And at the same time, enjoying it at the same time, not waiting for some, point in the future that may never come, right? So you get to enjoy it now because, we only have one life, right? And so I think, yes, the whole questioning about, especially when things are not going right, that's typically where we learn. But when we don't feel right within ourselves, is to kind of question that. I think it's really powerful to do that for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent. Enjoy that chat. So tune in for the next session where we'll be talking about some other topic.
I know.
Yeah, and we'll have by that. Enjoyed that. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow us for more unpacked and unfiltered Tuesday sessions. In the meantime, you can find us hanging out online over on LinkedIn, where you can find out more about what we do at Happy Bunny Coaching and Rebecca Jane Virtual Business Support. Links in the comments. See you next time.